So my name is Frank Lopez with Compound Films. You may know me, from the music video scene, the entertainment world, and this is my first podcast. And I want to bring on fellow directors in different industries, in the film world, in the music video world, entertainment, whatever, And today we have a special guest that currently does have a documentary on streaming platforms and is a fellow filmmaker. And he's out of Las Vegas. So I want to hand the mic over to you so that way you can introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, my name is Ram Denison, and I'm the director of Money Machine, which is a feature documentary about the 1 October Vegas mass shooting that is actually coming out today on October 1st, the 3-year anniversary.
Perfect. And so I know you're out of Vegas, crazy land, crazy world. And I know a lot of scandals and stuff. I went through your Facebook, and it appears that you're not a big fan of the police department in Las Vegas. Let's start there.
Well, yeah, the LVMPD is one of the most corrupt police departments in America. They're a department, there was a span last year where they had 10 officers arrested in a pretty short time. And so it's basically a department that does whatever they want, has zero accountability. And to me, that's unacceptable. As citizens, we pay their salary and they work for us. So part of the reason I make films is to just kind of keep, these government agencies accountable by shining a light on some of the corruption.
And were you in Vegas whenever that thing happened? The little cup is blocking the camera.
What? Oh,
were you in Vegas whenever that shooting situation happened?
Yeah, I was in Vegas on October 1st. Actually, interestingly enough, I'd driven. I was there that morning. It was just a Sunday morning, just another day basically. And then actually, I was watching football with my buddy, and then we drove back to California, which is where I live, and when we got to California at about 10:30 at night, my phone just started blowing up, and my text just started blowing up that there was a shooting at the Route 91 concert, and and at first I was being told there was maybe a couple people dead or whatever, and then it was only the next morning when I saw it was on all over the news and everything that there was that it was the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. history and that 58 people had been killed.
And after hearing about a situation like that, does that do anything for your PTSD, or does that make you more cautious to be out in public? What did this event do for you?
Well, I think being somebody who previously exposed corruption in the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, I just had to be careful making this movie, and I did that by this sounds kind of funny, but I used some disguises and stuff. Because, in 2017, no, not a mustache, but just I had this Montana cow rancher character that I kind of assumed the role of, and I named Trent Spoonbauer, this character I made up, and I would just kind of walk, had these goggles and this big hat, and it just, it didn't really look like me, and so that was kind of the idea. And when I would go to Vegas, I would check in under different names, and I would. Use.
And you do that for security, right?
Yeah, just for my own security as somebody who's exposed corruption in Vegas previously.
And so now when you go to Vegas, are you constantly like this?
Yeah. I try not to go to Vegas much anymore, to be honest with you. Just because I feel like I've raised enough of a ruckus there that, there's probably people in that town that wouldn't particularly mind if I was on the planet anymore. So I try to avoid those people as
best I can. Do they know you? These people that you've exposed, do they know you by face? Do they know your name?
Yeah, sure. I was told, I can't verify that this is true necessarily, but I think it was about 2 years ago, I was actually told by somebody who worked in security in Vegas. They said, hey, man, I'm kind of on the other side of things, but I'm kind of a fan of your work and I admire what you're doing. But, I want you to know where I work. There's like a sign up that has a picture of you, and it says, if you see this guy, call the LVMPD. So that was kind of funny. I mean, it's not, basically being treated like I'm a bank robber or something, but I'm actually just a guy who makes documentaries telling the truth about their corruption.
Mm. And I guess in terms of this corruption, I guess because I feel like there's so much going on in the world right now, and to take time to expose something, it might have either hit a nerve or it's it had to do with something that's important to you. Like what I guess tell us what this I guess give us an idea of what it is that you uncovered and what made you care so much about it.
Well, after October 1st happened, making a previous film about corruption in the LVMPD, it had kind of the surprising result of, which I didn't expect, of having former lieutenants and sergeants and now retired LVMPD cops kind of reaching out and forming a friendship with me because they kind of admired that I was, or they were behind what I was doing, which was exposing the corrupt leadership at the LVMPD. And they felt that this corrupt leadership had ruined their once proud department. So these were the guys that were really essential to Money Machine, because they were the ones, after this happened, the former cops and lieutenants and people like that, who actually called me up and let me know that a lot of what was happening was not as it was being presented, that there was information that Sheriff Joe Lombardo was suppressing. And so a good example of that is, it took 70 minutes for the LVMPD to even get in Stephen Paddock's room. And by the time they did get in his room, he would actually shot himself and killed himself and was dead. But the LVMPD couldn't actually even enter Paddock's room without a gun going off. They had an accidental discharge in the room when they were entering it. And Sheriff Joe Lombardo didn't even mention that in any of his press conferences. And he also didn't mention that there was an officer named Cordell Hendricks who was in position to do something about the shooting. And instead of doing that, just kind of sat in the hallway and cowered like a little baby. So this is all,
Clarification, in position to do something. What do you mean by that?
In position, like he was on the 31st floor and Paddock was up on the 32nd floor, and the body cam footage emerged of him just kind of going, oh no, there's gunfire, and just kind of you could see on his face that he was scared. So he's just sitting there on the 31st floor, cowering like a baby while these shots are going on and people are getting killed. So, and I understand people say, well, it's a scary situation. The guy's firing weapons and stuff. Yeah, well, you did sign up to be a police officer. And so you signed up for situations like that. So, if you're not going to be there when we actually need you, then why are we paying their salary?
So I guess, because I don't want to get straight to it, but I have to know, was the situation real? Was there a real shooter?
Oh, yeah, of course. There was a lot of conspiracy nonsense flying around about, that this was a crisis act. Huh?
They were saying that there was a helicopter and someone was shooting.
Yeah. A bunch of unsubstantiated nonsense that there's zero evidence of. But there were a lot of people who turned up on the internet and did these really elaborate videos where they would freeze frame this and enlarge the frame and did all this and see it's monkeys with machine guns hanging from the trees and all this stuff. But when we dug into the shooting, we found that it absolutely did happen. People absolutely did lose their lives, and this is a real event for sure.
Did you talk to anybody that was there and got shot?
Oh yeah. We talked to. Well, no, not shot, but injured. Yes.
Okay.
We interviewed multiple people who were there that night who were injured, and those people are actually profiled in they're part of Money Machine. The interviews are part of Money Machine.
And that's why you should watch it. Available on
iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, all that.
And so, so this is this your passion, correcting law enforcement, or do you is investigative work like your hobby? Is that, or you're just an all-around filmmaker?
I would really say I'm more of an all-around filmmaker. You know, I don't necessarily want to make an entire career out of like
Journey.
just pointing out police corruption. But in the case of Las Vegas and the LVMPD, it's so out of control and so wrong that somebody needs to shine a light on it, because the Vegas press has shown time and time again that they have no interest in doing that. They've allowed the corruption to continue. And a lot of people would tell you that the reason for that is, you know, everything in Vegas comes down to money. And so anything that kind of hurts the registers from ringing kind of gets buried and suppressed in Vegas. And that's kind of the gist of my movie, Money Machine, is we show, you know, the Vegas is this money machine that kind of runs over anything that gets in the way of the dollar.
And can you give us some more examples of some of this corruption that this guy is guilty of? That way we can be on your side and see what you see.
Yeah, you talking about Sheriff Joe Lombardo?
Correct. Or the police department.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. I mean, you know, they took a police union poll, and 94% of the officers, that's 94 out of 100, did not want Joe Lombardo as their sheriff. So that tells you a lot right there, when the cops in the department don't like this guy. But, you know, Lombardo's a liar. He's sneaky, and he just kind of, you know, he lied. The other thing he did that I thought was shameful was, you know, a lot of people didn't know this was an election year when this happened. In October 2017, when the Vegas mass shooting happened, Joe Lombardo was trying to be a reelected sheriff. And so, you know, those body cam files and the calls from October 1st and stuff, that's public information. And Sheriff Joe Lombardo, you know, police departments are funded by the public. And those 911 calls and body cam footage from the police and stuff, that's all public information. And Sheriff Joe Lombardo actually used public funds, public money, to hire lawyers to prevent that footage from being released. And the reason he did that, in my opinion, is because he had an election coming up in June, and he couldn't have all this footage coming out showing how incompetent his police department was that night. So here he is hiring lawyers to prevent the release of that information. And it took a lawsuit by a bunch of large media organizations like the LA Times, Associated Press. They all kind of got together and filed a lawsuit forcing the LVMPD to release the footage from 1 October. And eventually they won the lawsuit and he was forced to release it. But by the time, all this legal maneuvering and stalling that Lombardo did, by the time the really damning footage came out showing LVMPD incompetence that night, he had actually already been reelected. And one of the reasons he was reelected is because, you know, he was able to raise over $1 million from the casinos. That's the one thing Lombardo does well, is protect the casinos and the money. And the nearest competitor raised like less than $80,000. So you don't have a real competition in Vegas. You know, the powerful people with the money in the casinos, they fund the sheriffs, and then they just kind of put them in there to serve their interests. And it's a very like stacked town in terms of, you know, they all kind of get together in a room and decide who they're gonna pour their money into, and then everybody pours their money into that, and they don't give any zero to the other guy. So it's a very kind of rigged game in Vegas, and that's one of the reasons you have such really morally bankrupt politicians running that town. I'm talking about the governor, I'm talking about DA Steve Wolfson, and I'm talking about Sheriff Joe Lombardo. These are people with very shady ethics. DA Steve Wolfson, for example, when he was a lawyer before he was DA, his wife was a judge, and he attempted to try a case in front of his judge wife. And there was a gentleman who used to be on city council named Steve Miller, who called this out and reported it, and his wife was like kind of kicked out from being a judge. But you know, the ethics of somebody who would even do that, and to put somebody like that as your DA, I mean, it just says a lot right there.
So is it a possibility for him to get reelected again, even after this project comes out?
Well, I'm not sure what the term limits are, if it's 12 years or 8. So Lombardo's on his second term, you know, but sure, it's possible when you can raise more than 10 times the amount of money as anybody else, because, you know, even though nobody, even the people in your own department don't like you. Yeah, sure, it's possible.
Will you continue to put out projects based on this topic and subject if he does win again? If he's able to get reelected again and he wins?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you know, I made my movie about 1 October, and you know, as a filmmaker yourself, I'm sure you understand, you know, you make a project and then it's nice to kind of flip a 180 and do something different. You know, so yeah, I mean, I have a lot more in my repertoire than like one thing, you know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually moving on and doing other stuff.
Would it affect you personally if you did get reelected again?
Would it affect me personally? Well, I mean, it would mean that I'd have several more years of like articles about how corrupt he is sent to me every day via social media. I mean, every time I get on, it's kind of an interesting thing. I've kind of been like the guy, there's so much corruption in Vegas and there's so few people actually exposing it or doing anything about it that people just send it my way all day. And so it kind of like, it's kind of, I think maybe woken up the community a little bit to the corruption. And so you would hope that that means that they actually do something about it.
Yeah. Do you think that, and one more question, then I'll kind of explain why I asked that. Some of this corruption, how do I say it? Would you consider it crimes? You know, when they say victimless crimes, is this the corruption that's going on? The things that keep happening, do they involve victims?
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the biggest problems the LVMPD has, which my first film, What Happened in Vegas, focused on far more than this one, is their habit of just shooting first and asking questions later. You know, my first film, What Happened in Vegas, delved into 4 cases. The case of Trevon Cole, Stanley Gibson, Eric Scott, and Tashi Farmer. And these are all people who were killed, who shouldn't have been killed. And it was basically poor policing is the reason that these people are dead. Now listen, I'm not saying that everybody killed by police. There's, you know, there are people who deserve to be killed by police and were. You know, if you're walking out of a bank that you just robbed or whatever and you get shot, I'm sorry, I have zero sympathy for you. But, you know, the LVMPD has a disturbing pattern of continuously murdering people they don't need to murder, and then kind of lying and suppressing video footage and just conveniently making, you know, kind of slanting things to their own point of view, and the complacent and complicit Vegas media kind of aids them in their corruption.
Have you ever felt physically threatened, or just in any way feel threatened by these people, by law enforcement, or anybody that you've exposed?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, the answer is yes. Obviously I get, you know, the online trolls. They come from sometimes from like accounts that can't really be, or new accounts or whatever. And they send me messages and you try to reply or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like offline and you can't reply to it. I've gotten those, but you know, I subscribe to the theory that most people who talk smack online are just losers with keyboards, you know, as far as out in the real world. Yeah, I mean, actually, one of the reasons I started doing my disguise as Trent Spoonbauer was because I was actually filming something by the Mandalay Bay, and some LVMPD cops just kind of like came up behind me right on Las Vegas Boulevard and were just kind of like glaring at me and following me, and so I actually turned my camera on and filmed it, which has always been kind of my key, is to, like, you know, if the police are being corrupt, turn your camera on. That's how you can fix it. And so, you know, and so that's one thing I definitely advocate doing is that, like, if the police are messing with you, always just turn on your camera phone. If they're doing something wrong, record it. And, you know, because cameras don't lie and the LVMPD does. So,
you know, they do edit. I've heard they do edit videos.
I've heard that as well. Yeah.
So my question is, as filmmakers, can we really do anything about all this going on? Because I also did a documentary about a murder that happened to a well-known music artist in Corpus Christi, Texas. And he was very well known. And I did the documentary exposing the DA and the corrupt judge and you know, they said they were going to reopen the case because they let the murderer walk free, right? Even though he clearly murdered, you know, my friend, I guess. And so I put it out, and you know, the whole city was behind it. Made it on the news. The news crew confronted the DA, and he's trying to scramble. And then, you know, 2 years have passed. And
man, I know exactly what you mean. Like I've had that same thing, you know, like when my first film came out, it was the same kind of thing. I made, you know, created a stir, the news was all over it and stuff. And then years pass and it's just like the same dirty DA in there. And it is kind of like nothing's changed. But, you know, one of the reasons I do what I do is I feel like, I mean, your film, you actually made a film that's going to stir around in the universe for not just a couple of years, but for pretty much eternity. And same here. So, you know, I operate under the theory that if you bring corruption out into the light and expose it, that maybe you make it less likely to happen again. Because if somebody's putting you on blast and it's out there and you're being called out in public and there's videos of it swirling around, can you really just continue doing that?
Yeah.
But same behavior. I mean, maybe they just become more sneaky about the corruption, but I would think in some cases it would make them just more hesitant to actually do it when you start calling it out. And the police are never going to give you that satisfaction of letting you know that you've actually changed things.
Yeah.
But I do believe that, like, by shining a light on it and putting it out there, it helps. And that people like myself and yourself with the ability and skill to make films should actually do that, you know? And in citizens too. I mean, citizen journalism is a wonderful thing, you know, to turn your cameras on and write and blog and just, you know, that's the police work for us. And I'm all in favor of doing everything we can to hold them accountable.
Yeah, I went through this thing where, you know, I feel like I did my part, but at the same time too, it's almost like, man, I came this far. I didn't come this far just to come this far, right? And it's one of those things where I'm like, should I revisit again? Could the documentary have been better? You know, what do I show? Like, does that ever come into your mind to where you're like, let's do one more. This guy has to get out of here.
I mean, it sounds like what you're talking about is like a drive and a passion for actually like exposing corruption. And
well, I mean, getting out there. Like I'm saying, like let's say he got back in there, would you be like, damn it, I'm gonna put out another documentary on this guy. Fuck, I need to get him out of here. Does that ever enter?
Yes. Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. Like, you know, one of the things that really makes me sad is like every couple of months, I seem to have a new video sent to me of somebody murdered by the LVMPD that didn't need to be murdered. And then I have videos sent to me of like their mothers, you know, at news conferences, like crying, you know, and you sit there and go, how many of these does there need to be before these, this dirty DA and this corrupt sheriff and this glad-handing governor will actually do something about it, you know? And so that's the sad part for me, is like when I see the cycle keep repeating itself and these worthless politicians pay lip service to it, but don't actually do anything. And I also think that a lot of the rioting that you've seen over George Floyd and stuff is as a result of that. You know, the fact that these slick politicians get up there and talk a bunch of nonsense that they have no intention of implementing. And then nothing actually happens. And I think people are just tired of it. And I think they're right. You know, law enforcement there's a lot of problems with law enforcement in this country, a lot of problems that law enforcement in some other countries don't have. And so I think that a lot of those reactions are as a result of that, you know, just how fundamentally unjust, and how these politicians want to go to their $500 plate luncheons and talk about improving things, but don't actually want to get off their butt and do it.
Does that make you want to be a politician one day?
Oh no, hell no. I mean, politicians are very compromised people, you know? I mean, by its nature, it's a very compromised profession. Whereas as a filmmaker, you can actually like present your point of view and without having to sit around and compromise and worry about ruffling this union's feathers and that union. And part of the reasons politicians aren't able to actually do something in many cases is because unions are very strong. Like the police unions are very strong. So even if a politician goes home to his wife and says, gosh, this police corruption is really bad, I want to do something about it, I want to start doing this, you find that you run up against these unions that have massive resources and fight that. So, I really do feel like one of the best ways of fighting it is media and just kind of exposing the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, if people are if a lot of people are profiting off of something, of course it's gonna take hell to bring it down, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, yeah, exactly. If there's a money machine going.
Oh, there it is. Good plug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the essence of the film was about, was how the Vegas money machine had to, like anything that gets in the way of it has to be stomped down. And that unfortunately the victims of 1 October are kind of pushed aside. And that's kind of the essence of my film Money Machine.
Definitely. Money Machine. I'm going to definitely check it out today. I want to switch gears real quick because I know you're a busy man and I don't want to take all day.
No problem.
I want to switch gears. Well, for sure, you better watch that Money Machine. I'm going to watch it today. And I want to switch gears to Tiger King. So I guess to tell us how you got involved or tell us what your experience was like with the project, because it was amazing.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to clarify, I'm not involved with Tiger King. I did like an offshoot, like Discovery ID did a show called Joe Exotic, Tigers, Lies, and Cover Up that actually just aired on Sunday and Monday. And that was the show that I was an editor on, a television show. And so, yeah, it involved all the characters from Tiger King. But I didn't actually work directly on Tiger King, but I got to work on that amazing case, which is just, I mean, I'm with you, man. I think it's just an awesome story. The story is incredible in its oddness and funniness. And it was a pleasure to work on that one for sure. I mean, I don't think the world's ever seen a character like Joe Exotic. I mean, he's hilarious. Yeah.
You said you were friends with the Investigator Guy on there.
Jim Rathman. Well, I became friends with him as a result of working on the show. I didn't actually know him before the show, but our team was pretty tight, and we got to know each other pretty well. And the shows, I think, I'm really proud of the shows, which aired on Sunday and Monday, and then we have there's another one airing as well. So, yeah, Joe, yeah, that was a fun one.
So the Investigator Guy, he was the real deal, huh?
Oh yeah, I mean, Jim Rathman uncovered a lot of really interesting things. We really delved a lot deeper into Don Lewis, and kind of like on his last days, like the events leading up to his murder. We went into great detail about that. Well, I said murder when nobody can prove it's a murder at this point, but that's what we believe happened.
Definitely.
Theory we put forward in the show.
Is there going to be? Are there going to be any more episodes or any more shows like that coming out that you might be involved in?
Well, Tiger King, Joe. I think that one's pretty much wrapped. That was a 3-parter. But yeah, I mean, I tend to be involved with some really cool, like fun investigate. I shouldn't say fun because a lot of them are true crime and they're rather dark. Murder was what So, but yeah, I tend to be involved with some cool, like investigative true crime shows, and I'm sure there'll be many more coming down the pike.
So I know that we're filmmakers. Do you plan on doing a full-fledged like movie, like a scripted movie soon, or what can we expect from you?
Yeah, not necessarily. I like documentaries. At the same time, I like to like switch it up, maybe try something different. But I'm not one of these guys who like thinks that I have to make a narrative film necessarily. I like the process of making documentaries. I like interviewing people and learning, and so that, you know, so documentaries suit me well, and I'd like to continue making them.
Definitely. Do you think that, what do you think the difference is about the documentary game versus the original scripted content game?
I think they're very different. They're very, very, very different in that if you think about like a narrative, you kind of have everything like out, like you know what the story is, right? And then basically like filming a narrative is kind of like executing a blueprint, right? And dealing with the things that get in your way in terms of crew and weather and things like that. But you already know what it is, and you're trying to execute that. Documentaries are not like that. Documentaries are a process of discovery and learning, which is what I like about them. And also the crews are a lot smaller on documentaries, you know. Many times I've just rolled in there by myself and lit interviews and filmed sound by myself, and I like that. I like the flexibility of you know, just sitting down with somebody and like hearing, you know, you really, one of the great things about making documentaries is you get to interview experts and take a deep dive into their field and really kind of learn a lot. So I mean, I think a lot of people who like making documentaries are people who like to learn about things.
I like documentaries, like you say, because I like to just show up, press record, get what I need, and get out of there, instead of making like an event out of things.
Yeah.
All day, I like to just get in and then get it and get out.
Yeah.
And I feel like these new cameras that are coming out allow you to be real lightweight. I was talking to a director that put out a movie. His name is Christian Sesma, and the movie was called Pay Dirt, and it had Val Kilmer in it. And one of the things that he was saying was that the future is about having a smaller crew that's very aerodynamic, that's, you know, that you're able to just kind of run and gun with and do filmmaking. In my case, I want to do filmmaking in 60 days. I want to be able to crank out projects in 60 days, even if they are scripted. But one of the things that he was saying is that the future is lightweight. And I feel like you're one of the guys that is able to move lightweight. I've been able to move lightweight. I'm a run and gun kind of guy. I'm a get in, get out. I'm a waste no time.
Yeah,
guy, right?
Me too. I love running and gunning. Yeah. And I think you're right. Like that's the way I prefer to make films too. Even if I was doing a narrative, I'm not a fan of these, like, you know, in LA, you walk by these crews that there's like 80 people on the crew. 95% of them are just sitting around chomping on a bagel, waiting, and it's just very slow and lethargic. I like, you know, and I think also this has been kind of enabled by technology improvements with cameras. I mean, cameras are awesome nowadays. You know, you can have a lightweight. You know, there's like little DSLRs that shoot beautiful pictures, just beautiful, and they're light, and you can get in, and they're also kind of discreet, so you don't. You can get into locations that you wouldn't have been able to get into with a big camera, where people would be like, "Hey, what's that guy doing here with this giant camera?" Right? So, no, I think you're right. Like, I think the era we're in is a very great one for running and gunning. You know, and that's and it's just such a beautiful thing to like be traveling without all this these things weighing you down. You know.
Do you think that there's an advantage with some of these streaming platforms because I look at cameras like little computers attached to lenses. That's how I look at it, right? Because the cameras are just like little computers that tell the lens what to capture and how to capture it or whatever. But do you feel like these streaming platforms give us an advantage because we could then shoot something with our cell phone, put it together with the documentary, and then you know, send it to these streaming platforms? Do you think that we have an advantage because, like, unlike platforms like Netflix, well, they'll license stuff, but they're more particular on what cameras you use and da. Do you feel like it's an advantage by other platforms to let us shoot with whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I think the streaming, you know, like kind of the Netflixes and Amazons taking over the world is not necessarily a great thing for filmmaking. You know, like,
good point.
Because they have all the power and they kind of, I also think it kind of devalues films a bit, you know, because people are
Correct.
so used to watching things for free that, but you know, there's obviously a lot of good things about it too. Like the ability to actually make content and get it out there is higher than it has ever been, you know. But there's two sides to that, you know. The independent film world in the 90s was awesome. Like there was a lot of like really vibrant independent films coming out, and they would have audiences. It was incredible. You know, like a movie like Clerks, a little $30,000 movie out of New Jersey made by a guy who had a great sense of humor, Kevin Smith, but nothing else. I mean, he didn't have professional actors. He didn't have money. He was a convenience store clerk, and he made this $30,000 movie, Clerks, which was awesome, you know? And I mean, if Clerks was made nowadays, would it be able to break out like that? Probably not, because the marketplace is so crowded. But, you know, so there's pros and cons to all of it. And I think what's happened is that the market is definitely flooded. Like there's maybe 8 or 9 times as many people making films as there was in the 90s. So that's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yep. I guess in the meantime, we just got to keep cranking out these great projects so we can stand out and brand ourselves and you know, hard hitting content. And I believe that you will. So I guess can you tell everybody where they can find? I guess you know, I know that you're on the streaming platforms, but can you kind of tell them where to follow you and where they can find you and all that?
Yeah, you can find us on Money Machine. If you go to Facebook and type Money Machine, you know, and look for the movie, you can follow our Facebook and stay in touch, because I have frequent updates about the project, and you know, I release new videos and stuff pretty regularly. So yeah, go on to Facebook, follow us at Money Machine.
Perfect. Well, it was good to meet you via Zoom.
Yep.
And hopefully, you know, hopefully we look forward to watching more of your projects, supporting more of it, maybe even working together in the future. Who knows? But,
pleasure. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Good talking with you.
I support you. Thank you.
Yep.